In 2010, to celebrate my son Noah's 18th birthday, he and I went to New York City, and stayed in a hotel near the Meatpacking District, our new favorite neighborhood. Once in the room, we checked out the view, and Noah claimed the bed by the window. When he went into the bathroom, I strung balloons over the headboard, a tradition, which of course he was too old for. It occurred to me he might be annoyed, but when he came out, he looked at them, smiled, threw himself down on the bed, and said, "You always come through with the balloons, don't you, Mom?" We'd been coming to New York City together, a 4-hour drive from Ithaca, New York, where we lived, since Noah was 7. It was a splurge. I was divorced and an adjunct professor, but it was worth every penny. Right from the beginning, Noah loved the city. The Metropolitan Museum, walking around Central Park, Soho, Chinatown, trying different kinds of food, and hailing cabs. He learned how at 7, watching men in suits who did it every day. He had a little man quality about him, even when he was a small boy. We always came to the city for his birthday. That year, the big 18, I knew that I had to share him with his best friend Jay, who was in his first year at NYU. I was so proud of my boy, almost man. Noah hadn't had an easy first 18 years. His dad and I divorced when he was 3. He was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at 11. At 16, a terrible accident resulted in him being in a wheelchair for months, missing school, and being dependent on me for too many things. He'd been on Vicodin for months, and he had a hard time getting off. Our first night in the city, we saw a show on Broadway about a struggling musician who must confront demons and who triumphs. It seemed like a perfect choice. Noah played electric guitar every day. He loved the blues. Stevie Ray Vaughan, jazz, Miles Davis, Jimi Hendrix were fixtures on CDs and posters, and Noah's playing in our house. So through most of this show, Noah watched the stage riveted, but his left leg kept shaking. I put my hand out to still it. I knew he was too old for me to do that. He pushed my hand off, and I reminded myself he's 18. At the end of the play, he couldn't wait to get out of there. He was meeting Jay for pizza. He hailed a cab. I told him to be back at our hotel by midnight, and he was back at 12:30. Very reasonable. We went to sleep. The next day, we went to the Museum of Modern Art, and Noah looked at the Murau and the Jasper Johns and the Pollock. He loved to paint as much as he loved playing guitar. I got bored of the museum before he did. That night, he was again going to meet Jay for dinner. I met a friend in the neighborhood, and when I got home, to my surprise, Noah was already back in bed. The balloons strung over the bed were slightly deflated. The room smelled sweet, and Noah was motionless in the bed. The TV was blaring. Something was wrong. I stood still. My purse slid off my shoulder onto the floor. The little bag of leftover tapas fell out of my fingers. 2 cartons of ice cream were lying soggy on either side of Noah's big, broad-shouldered, t-shirted torso, and the melted French vanilla and monkey fudge pooled in the sheets around his long-limbed body. In one instant, I knew he was fucked up with drugs. And this wasn't ordinary 18-year-old on his birthday fucked upness. This wasn't the sleep of the post-celebratory I'm my own man, I was partying with my best friend fucked upness. This was the sleep of someone in trouble. My son who'd fallen asleep in a bed full of ice cream. I knew. I'd known. I'd not known. I shook his shoulders, and he opened his eyes and smiled dreamily. When I poured water on his forehead, he shook his head back and forth, but didn't mind the way someone should mind. Noah, Noah, Noah. I kept saying his name. And every once in a while, he'd respond, Mom, Mom, Mom. He's type 1 diabetic, so I tested his blood sugar, and considering the ice cream intake, it was reasonable. I let him lie in that creamy, rivulated mess while I found his backpack and saw what I'd known and not known for almost 2 years. Oxycontin, Vicodin. Pills in containers, some labeled, some not. Hot and nauseous, I took off my coat and I realized my blouse was stuck to my arms and chest with sweat. I stank. I wasn't thinking, but I was moving. Noah needed to get into the other bed, out of the ice cream. So I got him to stand up, wobbling, and then pushed his 6'2" frame into my bed. And then I washed his face and hands with a washcloth to get rid of the stickiness. He was conscious, just sleepy. He didn't mind me treating him like he was a little boy. I knew what I had to do. We were going to leave the next day. I was going to take him to a rehab. I tried to remember how long it seemed that his smoking pot, secretive but sometimes clear to me, had seemed excessive, and how long I'd wondered about his drinking at parties, and how long I wondered if he'd continued with the Vicodin. Now, a lot of high school kids smoke pot, and a lot of high school kids get drunk. And these days, a lot of kids take opiates recreationally. I'd been saying, it's a phase. And his dad had been saying, it's a phase. They're all doing it. But now I knew. He had gotten so fucked up on his 18th birthday that all he wanted to do was eat ice cream in bed with the TV on and go to sleep. As agonized as I was about his state, as well as racked with guilt, I felt relief. Now I knew. I slept in the hotel chair for a while, then on the floor as the light went from pitch black to barely gray. Every once in a while, standing up to look at his back and broad shoulders, checking the breathing. It was like when he was little and was sick. I knew how to take care of a sick little boy. And then I thought, he's 18. He doesn't have to do what I say. He doesn't have to go to a rehab. He's 18. Around 5 in the morning, I heard his voice. Mom, you always come through with the balloons. And I just started to repeat over and over to myself, he will do what I say. He will do what I say. It's been 6 years since Noah's 18th birthday. He's almost 24. For the record, he did go to rehab and get sober and relapsed and went to another rehab and another. At 21, he checked into a long-term program out here in Southern California, where I had just moved. He did not look back at me that day I dropped him off. He walked in the door like it was the only door left on earth. So it's been 3 years, and he's sober, and he works as a counselor in a rehab, and it's a beautiful thing. But I know the beautiful things don't always last. Nevertheless, for Noah's anniversary of his 3rd year of sobriety, I will bring balloons. Thank you.